pro and con people from this Evergreen Senior Homes initiative reach out to us. As an organization, we don't take sides on items that are on your ballot, and we don't endorse candidates, but we like to have informed voters and allow both sides to come in the format of debate with equal time. So that's what we're doing tonight. And so what we're going to do is the pro and con sides both have PowerPoint presentations. So we'll let them do their presentations, and we'll decide how much time they need, and then we'll give them both equal time. Then we'll take questions, and any questions will go to both sides, so they'll each get 1 minute to answer. And then at the end, we can do closing statements for 2 or 3 minutes, or we could just take extra questions, whichever you guys agree on. So to start with, how much time do you think you need? Is it 10 or 12 minutes?
I can run through mine in probably about 5-6 minutes.
How about yours?
That long.
Usually about 10 minutes, but I could speed it up if you need.
So when we plan on 10 minutes each?
Yeah, sure.
Right? And so I'm going to have Andy Benkert go first, and see if the 1 minute warning for the 10 minutes. And you can also see the clock up here. And then when we get to the Q&A, we'll give you a 15-second warning and a hook.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you all very much for having us and for your time tonight. My name is Andy Benkert, and I'm the campaign coordinator for the San Jose residents for Evergreen Senior Homes. And what I'd like to do is just give you some information about the initiative. We'll all be voting on it on June 5th this year. And so with that, let's get started here. Who are we? Who are the San Jose residents for Evergreen Senior Homes? We're a coalition of community members, senior citizens, veterans, and community leaders. In our effort to qualify for this for the ballot, we collected 35,000 signatures in less than 2 months from people here, residents of San Jose, that want to vote on this. And we've had hundreds and hundreds of San Jose voters that have given us permission to use their name as public supporters. Why are we here? Because our local government, and not just in San Jose, but in our region, haven't been doing their job. Their inaction has led to this housing crisis that we read about on a daily basis. We've picked out a few articles that we've seen over the past couple of months, and these are just a small sampling. One in particular has a quote from the mayor himself. We typically would welcome being on a top 10 list of hottest anything. But in this case, our housing market has been plenty hot for plenty long enough, and we need to get about the business of cooling the market by building the supply that's needed. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring a solution that can help alleviate a part of this housing crisis in our community. Another interesting one here, we've seen that even Apple and Google engineers are having a problem affording homes in this area. And then another quote from a housing economist, we just aren't building enough homes, and building new homes is extremely important for inventory because they create a chain reaction effect. And again, we feel that this project, building homes in an area where it seems right for the neighborhood, is the best use of that property. So the city also, we have found, hasn't been doing enough for more than half of all seniors, and this is according to a report analysis that they provide, that the city wrote when this was coming up for a vote to put on the ballot. We also see that the city is not even coming close to meeting their goal for affordable housing in the city. In fact, over the last 5 years, the best that they have done is 21% of their goal, their annual goal for building affordable housing. And again, that is from a city report taken straight out of it. So what is the Evergreen Senior Homes Initiative, or Measure B, that you'll be voting on? What it does is it takes 200 acres of unused industrial land and converts that into senior housing designed for active, independent living seniors, 55 and older. That's the entire project. All of the units will be 55 and over. There will be up to 910 units total, and 20% of those units will be designated as affordable, 182. And they will be offered at below market rates to senior citizens with a preference given to military veterans. The project is designed to serve veterans, over 30 acres of permanently protected open space, and water conservation and solar energy are incorporated into the plan. Every unit has to have water conservation measures and solar panels. It will generate millions annually for local government, parks, libraries, and school districts without raising taxes, and it will create less traffic than the currently allowed industrial usage. In fact, well over 10,000 trips per day less than what is currently allowed for development on that property. Now, the project, as you'll see here, is bordered on the north generally by Aborn Road, on the west by Yerba Buena Road, and on the east by the San Jose Green Line. Now, over a study that was done, we found some of the economic impacts that this would have. $624 million in positive economic impact for the city, $210,000 annually in net revenue to the city's general fund, $1.4 million in positive economic impact annually, 3,000 full and part-time jobs. There's some other facts there as well. Now, over the course of our time working to qualify for this ballot, qualify this for the ballot, we've seen our opposition come out with many myths about the project itself. The first, and I think the biggest, is that this project will open the door for senior housing to be built on all industrial lands in San Jose. The city has identified over 32 or 3,400 acres of industrial land that can be used for jobs. And our opposition is saying that all of that, if this measure passes, will be converted into senior housing. And that's just not true. This applies to a single site in Evergreen, not to any other property. And from the city's own 9212 report, if a proposed general plan amendment to utilize the citywide overlay were submitted to the city council has the discretion to approve or deny the application. Another myth is that this project will make traffic in Evergreen worse and won't pay fees for traffic impacts. It would be more traffic than what is there now, which is nothing. It is land that is designed for industrial or designated for industrial use. So there's no industrial use there right now. But if the industrial use were built out, there would be in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 6,000 jobs that could be located on that property. And the traffic impact that would have, the city reports that there would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 to 16,000 trips per day. Whereas senior housing on that would generate somewhere, I think, in the neighborhood of maybe about 3,000 or 4,000. The project does include $4 million in much-needed transportation improvements for the Evergreen neighborhood and will pay for whatever traffic mitigations are required through CEQA, just like any other development. Another myth that we hear is that this plan does not provide low-income units or sufficient very low-income units as required by the San Jose Inclusionary Housing Ordinance. It does. This project complies with the IHO's option to provide guaranteed on-site affordable housing and exceeds it by requiring more affordable units, 20% versus 15%, at the same affordability level. And that's right in our project. Our opposition likes to claim that it's not on-site affordable housing, but looking at the project itself, it's all one contiguous piece of property, it's on-site, and as far as providing affordable housing, we will be providing more than is required. Again, another myth, this project will cost the city millions of dollars per year. And this is one of these things that is based on their assumption that if this passes, all employment lands in San Jose will be converted to senior housing. And it's just not reality. It's not going to happen. So the myth that this will cost millions of dollars per year is just that. It's a myth. Veterans will not benefit from this since there are no guarantees for veteran housing. This project was designed and will be built with services available for veterans, space available for that. We've made a commitment to help veterans, and that is something that's enforceable. So the fact that they're trying to say that this is not going to benefit veterans is just untrue. The project is vague about what constitutes underutilized employment lands, but in reality, the city has broad discretion in its interpretation of its general plan and other local land use laws, and rejects such a broad interpretation of the term, and that's from the city's own memo with the 9212 report. So what we're doing is we're giving people a choice. We can help solve the housing crisis in our community now, or we can build high-rise industrial buildings directly adjacent to Evergreen neighborhoods that will significantly increase traffic by thousands more trips per day. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Dave, for having me. My name is Mackenzie Mossing. I live just a couple miles away from here in District 10. I also work for the Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society, where I advocate for birds and their habitats in Santa Clara County. Our organization is working with a grassroots group of environmentalists, housing advocates, seniors, millennials, Democrats, Republicans, to defeat Measure B. And we aren't the only ones opposed. All of San Jose's leaders, including some state leaders, all are opposed to this initiative. We have all of City Council, a group of people who can't agree on anything. They all agree that there is something to despise about this measure. Assembly members Ash Paulra, Kansan Chu, Mike Stone, and nonpartisan groups like AARP. If AARP thought this was going to help seniors, they wouldn't be opposed to it. And you can check out more at our website, noonbsj.com. Now, I'm not going to focus on the Evergreen proposal because that's not what I'm worried about, and that's not what you should be worried about. What I care about is this. The initiative creates a loophole in the general plan that can be applied to all industrial and commercial lands in San Jose. So everything you see in blue will be affected. Every neighborhood has something that can be affected. And lawyers have looked at this. They agree that, yes, this overlay that they create can be applied anywhere and everywhere in the city, from local strip malls where you go and buy your groceries, to low-rise office buildings, to the acres of open space in Coyote Valley. All of this land can be affected and transformed into housing. And I just wanted to give you an idea. This is the initiative, 367 pages. They want you to agree with every word that's in here. This is our general plan. This is the plan for our entire city. Compare the two. It shows you how pervasive that this initiative is. Bad for taxpayers. The city has done an analysis on this, and they've determined that this could create a $24.5 million deficit to the general fund each year. That is money that we use for our police, fire, road maintenance, parks, libraries, community centers. It's the money that we need to keep our city healthy. And I love this quote from Scott Harold. If you vote for this measure, you might as well come down to City Hall, light a bonfire in the plaza, and burn $100 bills from the city treasury. Bad for commutes. How many of you like sitting in traffic? Right? Because you do, wow. Because most of this employment land is in the outskirts of the city, by promoting sprawl in the outskirts of the city, we're going to increase traffic regionally. So more people hopping on 85, 87, 101, 280. And they say that, oh, it won't increase traffic because seniors don't drive. I didn't know that after 55, apparently you threw in your keys and stopped driving. And plus, since the requirement is only to have one person over age of 55 in the household, that means they can have teenagers living with them. They can have younger spouses. So them saying that this isn't going to increase traffic, I don't buy it. Bad for affordable housing. So they've talked a lot about how, oh, we have 20%, we've exceeded what the city requires, and that it's on-site. Well, they've built a wall around the community, and the affordable housing is outside the wall. So it's considered off-site housing, which is why 20% would still apply. Now, if you look at what is currently required, 12% low income, 8% very low income. In this initiative, it's 14% moderate income, so to families making over 100K a year, 6% very low income. So they've gotten rid of the low income, and they've put in this moderate income and decreased the very low income. So in the end, only 6% is affordable to people making under $100,000 a year. Does not help veterans. I love this quote from Salvazaro. So it sounds like when their flyers say preference will be given to the fullest extent of the law, that may mean not at all, because this only offers an unenforceable preference for veterans, and there are laws that might not prevent preference, so therefore 0 units for veterans. Bad for open space and wildlife. This is why people like me are concerned, because I love and cherish Coyote Valley. Anyone know where Coyote Valley is? It's on the southern end of our city. It acts as flood control and improves our water quality. Our aquifers are under there. This opens the door for suburban sprawl out all throughout Coyote Valley. It would be horrible for wildlife. That's the last remaining linkage for wildlife moving between the Diablo Range and the Santa Cruz Mountains. And like I said, that we rely on that valley to absorb thousands of gallons of water that would otherwise flood into our neighborhoods each year. Bad for quality of life. So in these 367 pages, they've taken 18 policies that were set up to ensure high quality of life. You know, we want walkable, bikeable, connected communities. We want to focus our development infill in high density areas next to transit. They've decided that all senior housing projects are exempt from those policies. And let me just say that this general plan was the product of thousands of community members, dozens of workshops, hundreds of hours, and unanimous city council approval. So this is really a product of the community. The developers are trying to rewrite the laws to make their own profitable set of rules. And it sets a bad precedent. So there's a reason we have the planning process that we have today. Normally, if somebody proposes a development, it has to go through city council, it has to go through environmental review, the public gets to have a say. This changes all of that, and it sets a really bad precedent. What will we see in the future after this? Will they say, hey, we want to build something in the Erikson neighborhood, and we're going to get the whole city to vote on it, right? This is not the new norm that we want for planning. There's a reason why we have the planning process that we have today. And another great quote from the Mercury News, immediate profits for landowners and developers should be the title of this initiative. Some other good great quotes from the Mercury News. My favorite one is at the end. Never before has such a diverse group of people opposed a local ballot measure so quickly and unanimously. Like I said, no matter what your background, no matter what you care about, there's something in this initiative that will affect you. It affects every district in San Jose. This is not about Evergreen. This is not about seniors. They're using those words to exploit our compassion so that they can profit from this development. So please, if you have any doubts, vote no and join us. Go to noonbsj.com. We need your help. We need your support. Like I said, all of City Council has agreed that this is terrible for our city, and I'm very concerned about this. I think you should be too. Thank you.
And
Yeah, sure.
sounds looks like Gail has the first question.
Okay, this is for you. I didn't get your name, but,
Andy.
okay, so Andy. I'm a senior commissioner for the county, and I'm a senior advocate, and I'm very concerned about what is happening and not telling the truth of what this whole Measure B and this quote-unquote senior housing is about. Most seniors now are downsizing. I live in a mobile home park. A lot of seniors are selling their homes and moving into smaller homes.
What's your question?
Just, I will get to it.
Yeah.
So, these are $1 million or $2 million homes that you're building. I was wondering, are you gonna transport people from the high-end Saratoga or San Mateo to come in and buy these homes? Because a lot of seniors can't afford $1 million or $2 million homes. And how do you think somebody that's a senior, low income would feel about living outside of a gate because they're low income. I think that's very downgrading to seniors that can't afford to live in the $1 million or $2 million homes. So what do you think about, do you have any answers to that?
Well, first of all, nothing's been built. So at this point, there is no wall and no gate. But
There will be.
There will be. This will be a gated community. Yes, it will be. But are we going to transport seniors in? No. There will be plenty of opportunity for people to learn about this community once the houses are on the market and to purchase if they feel like it, if it suits what their needs are. And there are a lot of different needs for seniors out in this community. Seniors are not a homogeneous group. There are a lot of different needs for housing, from very low income units up to units that are quite expensive.
But those low income are supposedly going to be built last,
Okay.
and there's no guarantee.
No, that's
Okay.
incorrect.
So let's
That's
have,
not-
Mackenzie have,
To
do
respond.
you have any
No, I
response?
don't have a
Well,
question.
I'm just going based off
Yeah.
of what I've seen in the drawings in here, and there is a gate, and the affordable housing is outside of the gate.
Yeah.
And a good point that Gail brought up is, yeah, this isn't really gonna be for our neediest population of seniors, right? San Jose has a dire need for affordable housing, like they showed in their own presentation, not market rate $1 million homes. We need affordable housing. That's not what this is providing us with.
182 units of affordable housing.
No guarantee to be built.
Okay, let's take the next question.
Andy, a question for you. At the end of your presentation, you mentioned that this is a choice for the voters. It's a senior housing or high-rise industrial. Can you talk about what will happen, what you're planning if the senior housing is not built?
We don't have a plan if the senior housing is not built.
You mentioned at the end there's a choice, and it said high-rise industrial housing. Does that
True.
mean?
That
Or high-rise industrial.
The property currently is zoned for industrial. And
Yes.
that could include buildings that, from my understanding, could be up to 15 stories tall.
So there's no plan for industrial right now?
Right now, the landowner is trying to build senior housing on that one.
But it's really not industrial housing.
There's, I don't think there's
So-
industrial housing.
Or, I'm sorry, industrial property.
Well,
Industrial
if
property.
housing doesn't get built on that, then
Does it stay open space then?
it's not zoned for open space.
But it is
zoned
open,
to- It is
it's been
zoned to be
open
built on.
space. Right, right now it's open space, so I'm just saying, will it stay open space if we vote no?
It's been
I can't
open
say.
for years,
I
so
can't say.
He can't.
It's undeveloped land, it's on the general plan
Okay.
for industrial, right?
So I think it might help to answer the question if I give you a little bit of history on the site. So since the 1970s, that site was initially zoned for residential, and the property owner also had some land in Berryessa that was zoned for industrial. He wanted to build homes in Berryessa, so he agreed on a land swap with the city. He said, okay, I'll rezone my Evergreen parcel for industrial if you let my industrial parcel in Berryessa become residential. So he went and built his housing in Berryessa, and now he wants a second bite of the apple. He's double dipping, right? Now he wants to get the second piece of cake out in Evergreen. So there hasn't been any proposals for industrial development there. It's not like if you vote no on this, all of a sudden they're gonna put up a high rise. They would have to go through the normal planning process to do that. So it's not like there's not a choice here, like they said. That you can either say no and it stays open space until who knows how long, or yes, and it becomes this gated community. Yeah. Yeah. Or I guess, sorry. Dave.
I think, yeah.
Up to you, Dave.
Did you have all this?
Okay,
We're gonna go
all
with
right.
he, I think
Yeah.
he has a hand up first. Sorry, I
Yeah,
missed
that's
you,
right.
Brad.
Yeah, I have a question. You understand that, built into into this plan here, that you've exempted yourself from any kind of traffic impact fees. And first of all, I'd like to know, is that true or not?
There are some impact fees that, yes, we won't pay because the traffic impacts of this development that we're proposing produces significantly less traffic than what the area has been developed for.
Okay,
So, yes, trying
Okay,
to
now-
charge people an impact fee that they're not having, that the area has been developed for, doesn't seem like.
Okay, I have another
Well,
comment
you
to this
gotta let
question
me,
here.
you gotta let me finish. I mean,
Just follow the rules.
yeah, so if we're generating significantly less traffic than what that land is zoned for and that area was built out for, it doesn't make sense to charge potential homeowners
Okay,
those traffic
can I
fees.
finish my question? Can I finish my question? And what the point I'm trying to make here is that there's another development just down the street called Evergreen Valley College. It's about 27 acres of planned development, and of that, probably about 10 to 15 acres that they actually will develop. Now, this particular development will have to pay a traffic impact fee. So this is about maybe 1/20th of the size of your area you're talking about here. So I think there's a real inherent unfairness here, what you're showing here, that you're not going to pay for any traffic impact fees for 200 acres, but for a much smaller development of 10 to 15 acres, they will have to pay a traffic impact fee. So can you respond why you think that this particular area would not have a traffic impact on Evergreen, and this Evergreen Valley College, which has only 10 to 15 acres, will? Can you explain that to me?
I can't speak to the Evergreen Valley College proposal because I'm not familiar with it. But I think I just answered your question as to why, in the proposal, we have said that we won't pay for some of those traffic impact fees. I've already explained that. So, yeah.
All right, okay, let's let Mackenzie answer.
Okay.
You've asked two questions already, let's let Mackenzie answer them, and then go on to somebody else
So
who's been
the
waiting.
question, as I understand it, was, did they exempt themselves from?
Yeah, do they exempt themselves from the traffic
Yes, in
impact
reading
fees?
this, they did, and obviously they just submitted it. So those impact fees are used for our public transit, for fixing our roads, improving lanes, intersections. And like I said, they want a more profitable set of rules, so why would they pay those fees if they don't have to? And they're saying that seniors don't drive. I'm still failing to understand how that's the truth. I mean, my parents are both 60, and they drive every day during rush hour as well. So, plus only one person has to be over the age of 55. So when my parents were 55, I was still living at home, driving every day. It's not like this is a community where everybody's gonna stay in their homes all day. They're still driving. So just because it's, I don't understand.
Listen, Brad. ask.
So, there's, it sounds like two opposing sort of hypotheses about comparing what doesn't exist with what you are planning, and then that's part of it. The industrial, the quote industrial site that doesn't have industry. You're like comparing, suppose it does have industry, that's a possibility, but the housing project would be a reality. So that argument doesn't make sense to me. The other one is, and this part was confusing, I think, at least for me, the assertion that if this gets approved for this particular zoned industrial site, that it could apply to all of the sites. And the word could means there's the possibility, but not the certainty. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
It is not certain that all the other industrial properties will become zoned for housing.
Correct. But we still have to analyze the effects of if that happens. So that's what this.
Of if that happens,
Right.
but that doesn't happen automatically. Each site will have its own process.
But my point is, why even make that possibility? Why even open that door? Why even go there, right? It goes too far. Why couldn't they just keep it to this site? Why did they have to expand it to the whole city? It makes me suspicious of their intentions, to be honest.
Yeah.
So what about it, I didn't get the part about what expands it to the whole city.
It creates what's called a senior housing overlay that can be applied, it's on page 16 if you read the initiative, that can be applied to all underutilized employment lands. Now the catch here is there's no definition for that term, and the city doesn't have a definition for that term. So it opens this broad, vague interpretation up to, okay, could that be a strip mall where the supermarket's closed down and it hasn't been filled? Is that underutilized employment lands? All the way to Coyote Valley where it's designated for industrial, but that could now be developed as well. So there's so much vagueness and uncertainty that,
Yeah, you can see why I am confused.
yeah.
There's no confusion, just
Yeah, exactly.
You just say no.
Can I ask a question? Why this site, since the city does want to have housing, and they're preferring to have it downtown, is this being pushed by the landowner or the developer? Why doesn't the developer buy some land downtown and put up a high-rise like the city is aching for?
The owner of the land worked with Ponderosa Homes to develop the plan. They felt that this use would be the best use for the existing neighborhoods that surround that property, instead of putting an industrial use out there and the amount of traffic that would create through the neighborhood. In the intervening 35 years since the zoning was made to industrial, all of those homes were built up around it, and the landowner just doesn't feel that putting a significant number of jobs out there really makes sense. And the city as well has changed its focus. 20 and 30 years ago, the city wanted to have job centers all over the place. And now they seem to be focusing more on a downtown transit core kind of a model.
So I'll just say a few things. I encourage you all to look up the landowner. His name is Carl Berg. He has some interesting history with our city. He's a billionaire, so obviously there's a lot of money to be made here. And if you've been getting the flyers in the mail like I have, you can say that, wow, there's a lot of investment going into this. So that says there's a lot of money to be made. It is his land. It's been his land for decades as far as I know. And like I said before, he wants to develop this property because he swapped it for another property that the city let him develop in District 4. So he's just double dipping here. He just wants to make the most bang for his buck.
Yeah, question.
First of all, my husband is 71 years old, and he leaves every day to commute to work from the West Valley to Milpitas. But my question is this. I live a very long way from this property. I'm concerned about the ongoing effects on the general fund of the city of San Jose, year after year after year. And my understanding is that the property owner, Mr. Berg, received an offer to purchase this property for an industrial use within the last year. I have no way to verify that, but that's been stated publicly. So I believe this property will eventually go. So I want somebody to explain to me about the $24 million loss to the general fund. And if you could please address the difference in what housing cost and what residential industrial development generates in money and what housing costs. And sometimes I think that number just gets lost, that this is every year. So if I'm in error in anything I just said, I want to give each of you an opportunity to respond to me.
I can't talk to a potential purchase in the last year of the property. I'm not privy to that information. What I do know is that we had a study done by a firm that uses the same standards to do these kinds of studies that the city does. And we came out with a positive economic contribution to the city's general fund of $210,000. The 20-something million figure that our opponents use is based on an assumption that all of the city's employment lands would be converted over to senior housing. And that's not a reality. It's absolutely not a reality. I'm not sure if I answered all of your question, but Sean, was there something that? Oh.
Do you have a question?
Well, can I speak to
sorry,
that? So Roma, I think part of what you're asking is where does this deficit come from? So the way our system works is our city gets a whole bunch of money from these businesses that come in and they have their office space, what have you. And 60% of all of the costs that we spend on services for housing, that comes from that revenue, right? We need the employment to generate money that we can use for our general fund. Well, by creating this overlay, essentially what they're doing is they're disrupting the balance between housing and employment. So the housing goes up, which is more of a drain on city spending, right? Police, fire, parks, roads, et cetera. And the employment goes down. So that revenue that it's generating goes down. whereas the cost in services goes up. So that's how that 24.5 million was calculated. And for that parcel alone, initially, it might make the city a little bit of money, but over time, because of Prop 13, it'll actually become a drain to the general fund over, I don't know, a decade or so.
By those standards, then all housing that we build are going to be equally draining on our city coffers. And I fail to see how we
Not
can
true.
extrapolate that. We're talking about one site that we're going to build 910 units on of much needed housing. We're in a housing crisis. We see it every day. I mean, there's a house in Sunnyvale a couple of weeks ago, less than 1,000 square feet, sold for $2 million. I don't know about you, but there's a lot of people in this community are priced out of housing because we haven't been building enough housing. So building housing is going to help us.
Not enough affordable housing.
All kinds of housing.
Okay, wait a second. So will we still answer the question that you answered and then you answered and went back to you again?
Yeah, I guess so.
How about we cut this one and take another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Robert Reese. I'm chair of the Land Use Committee for the Evergreen District 8 Community Roundtable. And Andy, one of the problems that I have with the presumption of your campaign is that somehow San Jose has been irresponsible in the production of housing, when in fact San Jose is the reason that the housing crisis is not worse than it is. San Jose has historically provided the lion's share of housing in this region and will continue to do so in the future, but wants to do it in a way that is economically sustainable and viable for the city, just like the North-South County cities have done. So for example, why didn't Ponderosa go for the 10,000 units in Mountain View, north of Bayshore, that's been rezoned for housing? It's a good location. Why didn't Ponderosa go and look at the request for proposal at Nassau for the 2,000 units that's being produced there? Why didn't Ponderosa go for the senior housing at a location consistent with the city's land use planning to have transit-oriented development? Why is San Jose the problem? What's wrong with San Jose wanting to conduct its fiscal affairs in the same manner of the North County cities?
Nothing wrong with it, but what we have seen over the last quite a few years is that San Jose has not kept up with the amount of housing that they're supposed to build.
That's not correct. San Jose provides a disproportionate amount of housing relative to its tax base and its jobs-producing lands.
But they've still
San Jose's
failed.
a bedroom community.
They have still failed to produce the amount of housing that they're supposed to produce over the last 2 to 5 years.
Just quickly, so actually there is a state mandated regulation that says, okay, here is your requirement for market rate, here is your requirement for affordable. San Jose has met the requirement for market rate housing. We have enough market rate housing.
Yeah.
Where we're way behind is affordable housing.
Yep.
And to say our city isn't doing anything is not true. Sam Licardo just published a proposal to build thousands of units in the core of our city. We don't need multi-million-dollar gated communities on the outskirts.
Yeah.
That's how our city was built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and we're suffering the consequences now. We can't keep building like this. We need to focus on infill and affordable housing.
Yeah, right on.
Was there another question in the back?
What is the median prices of the homes that are going to be built?
Right now, it's hard to say because a lot can happen between now and
Okay,
then.
what is your general?
The homes will range in price from probably somewhere in the $700,000 range up to over $1
Is this on
million.
the 80% that is non-affordable? What
Yes, the
are
market rate housing.
Okay, market rate. So you're going to build 1 bedrooms? Because that's $700,000,
There will be a
right?
variety of floor plans available, from my understanding.
So what's your question? So what's your answer? What is the median price going to be on the other 80% of the
I can't give you a median price. I know units, if they were built today, would be ranging somewhere in the 700,000 probably to a little over $1 million.
I believe they're gonna be more than $1 million because they're multiple bedroom homes, and we just said that a house in Sunnyvale sold for $2 million and that had like, what, 2 bedrooms? So I can't imagine how this would be less than $1 million per home. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Are we interested in doing closing statements? We have a few minutes left. So Okay, well, question.
Well, I mean, you made this comment about, San Jose's not making any, not building any more homes. I just happened to drive down Montague for an errand just today. I just saw this picture here, I don't know if everybody can see it here. If you ever drive down Montague and you see the light rail, this is Spark going there. You see a lot of houses being built, a lot of real homes being built. These are more affordable homes than these $1 million plus homes there. So I think it's a bit of a misstatement. You're saying that San Jose is not doing anything at all for housing, when in fact they are
You're
doing
mischaracterizing
it.
what I
This is proof
said.
right here.
You're mischaracterizing what I said, Wes. What I said was San Jose has not been meeting its goals for housing.
Yeah, but I just showed you just here, they are building lots of homes. There's probably
You
a
can
couple
build
thousand
and
units
still
right
not
there.
meet what you're supposed to be building.
Pardon me?
You can build and still not meet what you're supposed to be building.
I know, but
And
these
that's
are
what I said.
high-density homes that will really meet the needs. You talk about people like Google don't have enough, can't afford the homes. These are higher density homes that people can afford much better than the single-family $1.5 million homes. That probably, when all said and done, it'll probably cost around that much. And you'll need probably around $200,000, $250,000 to afford these homes. I don't think that is very affordable. You keep on talking about affordability, but in reality, it's only for, this small sliver of homes, and the bigger portion here is not affordable.
20% of the total units will be affordable.
Can I respond?
Yes.
One thing I forgot to mention is they've also written themselves out of the requirement that affordable housing units have to be built concurrently with market rate housing units. So without that requirement, technically they could build all the market rate housing units and never build the affordable housing units.
There's no guarantee.
So there's no guarantee.
None.
That's incorrect.
It is, I can find the page.
It's hot.
I'll throw out a question. It's kind of policy wonky kind of stuff, but when it comes to traffic mitigation, you're saying that because your development wouldn't have as much traffic as an industrial development, then it wouldn't cause as much of a traffic impact, so therefore, under regular rules, the impact fees wouldn't be as high. But you've actually written them out in the initiative. Why write them out in the initiative? Why exempt yourself if you think you would be exempted anyway by having lower traffic counts?
The plan does call for monies to improve traffic in some areas. I don't know what those are off the top of my head. But in terms of exempting ourselves from some traffic fees, the area was built and designed with the idea that 5,000 to 6,000 jobs would go out on that property. So ostensibly, it is, the traffic flow patterns in that area are designed to handle that. So putting in a different project that has significantly less traffic, it does not make sense to charge the kind of traffic fees that would be charged for what that land is designated for currently.
Yes, but for the record, normally impact fees are based on the actual impacts when you go through the process.
So
So
you
you
say too, one thing is on this, Sean Morley, another representative of the group, a full environmental, this will still require council review and approval, and there will be a full environmental impact report done. And if for some reason the work that the group has done to propose the project identifies, the EIR identifies traffic impacts that were not previously scoped as part of the project, the city will impose those, and the development will have to pay for any of those improvements. So it may not be coming through an assumption that there's an upfront fee, but the project's not going to be able to somehow dodge traffic improvements. It's impossible to do that in the state of California.
I'll tell Mackenzie or
So, okay, first of all, they're not going to have to do an EIR because ballot measure initiatives are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. That's what's happening, for example, with high-speed rail. It was passed by voters, so now it doesn't have to go through CEQA. So the whole idea of doing a ballot initiative, it gets you around those laws and regulations, something that our organization often comments on to advocate, hey, you need more open space, you need to plant native trees, etc. They don't have to abide by that law anymore because they're doing it by the ballot measure. So essentially, they're asking the voters, approve everything we have laid in front of you here, assuming that you're going to read all of this, and agree that we don't have to do an EIR because, and the EIR, not only does it analyze the environmental impacts, it allows the public opportunities to participate. Right now, we're asking voters to vote on something in District 8, putting it in their backyard, and they don't even get to have a say in it. That doesn't seem fair to me.
All right, one more question, I think we'll be
I just
hitting
have
8 o'clock.
a point of information because my running route, one of my running routes is right past this property, this land in Evergreen. And there are businesses already there, and I really haven't observed, I mean, they're not buildings that are 8 stories tall. They're attractive, kind of industrial park kinds of buildings. And the traffic effect has just been minimal. So the whole supposition that what we're going to have is multi-story buildings and thousands of employees there, I just really question that entirely because of what I've seen there already.
Is that a question?
It's just
Or
a
just
point of
comment?
information
Okay.
that there's
Okay.
already business there.
Okay. I think I'll, all right, one question
have a
from back and
comment.
then we'll follow.
I came a little late, and I just had a comment. The discussion keeps going back to Evergreen, but really, Evergreen is just a drop in the bucket. The real impact of that measure is the entire city. And remember that. You don't know what all the other things that are coming into every neighborhood in the city are going to result if you vote yes. And in Evergreen, the people who are here speaking against it, some of them are from Evergreen, and they know what it's going to be doing to their traffic issues and all the other issues. But really, you have to think about this. This applies to the entire city of San Jose. And the analysis that the developers do, it serves them. It doesn't serve you. And you don't get the analysis except for the one that the city has done that shows $25 million deficit every year to the general fund. So that should be the light that you need to look at. Sorry.